When 12-year-old Malik's name was pulled from that rig hat, the entire auditorium erupted in snickers. Not applause, not excitement. Pure cruel. Have you ever been the target of a joke disguised as an opportunity? That sick feeling when you realize everyone's in on it except you? That's exactly what happened to Malik Johnson on a Tuesday morning in Brentwood, Tennessee. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The random selection for the state talent show, Solo, wasn't random at all. Madison Turner had made sure of that. She'd slipped $20 to the student council president the night before, whispering instructions with the kind of confidence that only comes from never facing consequences. Make sure the poor kid gets picked, she'd said, her perfectly straightened blonde hair catching the light from her bedroom chandelier. This is going to be epic. Now, as Malik stood frozen in the hallway, staring at the sign-up sheet, his duct-tape sneakers squeaked against marble floors that cost more than his mom's monthly rent. Designer backpacks and North Face jackets parted around him like he carried some kind of disease. The whispers started immediately. Oh my God, seriously? This is going to be so bad it's good. Someone needs to record this. Malik's throat went dry. He'd walked these halls for 2 years, invisible most days, mocked on the others. In a school where kids got BMWs for their 16th birthdays and spring break meant ski trips to Aspen, he was the kid who ate free lunch and wore the same 3 shirts in rotation. But here's what nobody knew about that moment, not even Malik himself. 3 states away, in a Manhattan recording studio, a phone was ringing. A very important phone, the kind that changes everything. Mr. Williams? There's been a change to your schedule. You need it in Nashville. Well, actually, a suburb called Brentwood. It's a middle school talent show. Marcus Williams, Grammy-winning producer and music mogul, almost laughed. A middle school talent show? Are you serious? It's a favor for the district. Big donor situation. They want someone impressive to judge their state showcase. Marcus sighed, checking his Rolex. How long? 1 day, maybe 2. What Marcus didn't know was that this wasn't just any request. This was the culmination of a 13-year search, disguised as a simple favor. The private investigator had finally found her. Carmen Johnson, single mother, living in Brentwood, working double shifts at the local diner, with a 12-year-old son. Back in the school hallway, Malik stared at that sign-up sheet. Every instinct screamed run. Every logical thought said, don't give them more ammunition. But something deeper, something that had been building for 12 years of being invisible, whispered something else entirely. What they planned as humiliation would become the most shocking moment in that school's history. But what nobody knew was that the man watching from backstage was about to discover something that would change everything. The bell rang. Students scattered. Malik picked up the pen. His hand trembled as he signed his name. Not because he was scared, though he was. Because something inside him, something he'd never felt before, was telling him this moment mattered. This moment was bigger than their jokes, bigger than their money, bigger than their perfect little world. If you've ever felt like the outsider, drop a broken heart in the comments, because what happens next will shock you. Madison Turner watched from across the hall, her phone already recording. She had no idea she was about to film the moment that would destroy everything she thought she knew about power. That night, in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment on the wrong side of Brentwood, Malik did something he'd never done before. He practiced, not in front of a mirror like the kids at school who took voice lessons and acting classes, not with expensive equipment or professional backing tracks. He practiced in the tiny space between his bed and the wall, using a hairbrush as a microphone and his phone's speaker for music. His voice filled the small room, rich and deep and completely untrained. Pure, powerful, the kind of voice that stops conversations and makes people forget what they were doing. 3 miles away, in a mansion with more bathrooms than Malik's apartment had rooms, Madison Turner was hosting a sleepover. But this wasn't about friendship or fun. This was about strategy. Okay, so here's the plan, Madison said, her voice carrying that particular tone rich kids use when they're about to destroy someone. Emma, you're going to be recording from the left side of the auditorium. Chloe, you take the right. I'll be front and center. What if he's actually good? Asked Jenny Morrison, Madison's best friend since kindergarten. Something in her voice suggested she was already having doubts. Madison laughed. Have you seen his shoes? Have you seen where he lives? Trust me, he's not good. And even if he was, nobody cares about talent when you look like that. The girls giggled, but Jenny stayed quiet. She'd been thinking about this all day. About the look on Malik's face when his name was called. About the way he'd signed that paper despite knowing it was a trap. Meanwhile, back in his tiny bedroom, Malik stopped singing. He'd heard something, a sound he'd never heard before when he sang. His own voice, but different, stronger, like it was coming from somewhere deeper than his throat. He tried again. Same thing. It was like his voice had been waiting for this moment, waiting for him to really need it. Down the hall, his mother Carmen was just getting home from her second job. She kicked off her waitressing shoes and rubbed her feet, thinking about bills and groceries and whether she could afford to take time off at the talent show. She heard the singing and stopped. Actually stopped walking. That voice, that tone, the way it trembled on certain notes. Carmen's hand went to her throat. She'd heard that voice before, 13 years ago, in a recording studio in Nashville, from a man she'd loved so much she'd disappear to protect him. You sound just like, she whispered to the empty hallway, but couldn't finish the sentence. Some secrets are too dangerous to say out loud, even to yourself. 13 years ago, Carmen Rodriguez was 19 and fearless. She cleaned studios at night for minimum wage, but during the day, she dreamed of becoming a singer. That's how she met Marcus Williams. He was 25 then, talented but not yet famous. Just another producer trying to make it in Nashville's brutal music scene. They find each other in Studio B around midnight, when the big names went home and the dreamers came out. You've got something special, he'd told her after hearing her voice for the first time. Something real. Carmen had never felt more alive than those 6 months with Marcus. They were building something together. Music, love, a future. Then Marcus got his big break. A record deal, a contract that would change everything. And Carmen realized something that terrified her. She was pregnant. She could have told him, should have told him, but she'd grown up watching her mother chase men who promised everything and delivered nothing. She'd seen what happened to women who got labeled as gold diggers, baby trappers, career killers. So she disappeared, left Nashville, changed her last name from Rodriguez to Johnson, moved to a small town where nobody knew her story and nobody asked questions. For 13 years, she convinced herself she'd made the right choice. Marcus became everything she'd known he could be. Grammy winner, chart topper, the kind of success that made headlines and broke hearts. And she'd raised Malik alone, worked double shifts, skipped meals so he could eat, watched him grow up looking more like his father every day, especially around the eyes. Now, listening to him sing through their thin apartment walls, Carmen felt the weight of 13 years of secrets. Because that voice wasn't just Malik's. It was Marcus's too. The same natural rhythm. The same way of finding the heart of a song. Back at Madison's sleepover, Jenny Morrison was staring at her phone. She'd been scrolling through social media, looking at posts from the talent show announcement. Something about this whole situation felt wrong. Madison, she said quietly, what if this backfires? What do you mean? What if he's actually talented? What if we look like the bad guys? Madison rolled her eyes. Jenny, you're overthinking this. He's a nobody from nowhere. This is about putting people in their place. Some people are meant to be stars, and some people are meant to watch from the audience. But Jenny couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to make a terrible mistake. She'd seen Malik in English class. He was quiet, but he wasn't stupid. He read books that made her head hurt. He answered questions that stumped everyone else. What there was more to him than any of them realized. 300 miles away, Marcus Williams was packing for his unexpected trip to Tennessee. He had no idea he was about to meet his son. Madison Turner had never heard the word no in any language that mattered. At 14, she already had more power than most adults. Her father owned 3 car dealerships and half the commercial real estate in Brentwood. Her mother sat on the school board and the country club's social committee. When Madison wanted something, she got it. When she wanted someone gone, they disappeared. That's how she'd gotten rid of Ashley Chin last year. One carefully placed rumor about Ashley's family's restaurant failing health inspections, and suddenly Ashley was eating lunch alone. Then homeschooling, then gone. But Malik Johnson was different. He wasn't trying to climb the social ladder or impress anyone. He just existed quietly in a way that somehow made Madison's carefully constructed world feel fake. The morning after the sleepover, Madison cornered Dylan Peters, the student council president, at his locker. "You did exactly what I asked, right?" she said, her voice sweet, but with an edge that made Dylan's stomach turn. "Yeah, but Madison, I've been thinking." "Don't." She stepped closer. "Don't think. Just make sure nothing goes wrong with the sound system during his performance." Dylan's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I mean, it would be really embarrassing if the microphone cut out right when he started singing. Really embarrassing. But not surprising, considering how old that equipment is." "Madison, that's what's going to happen. Unless you want everyone to know about your dad's little tax problem." Dylan's face went white. Madison's father had mentioned something about an IRS audit casually over dinner last week. The kind of casual mention that wasn't casual at all. You wouldn't. Try me. That afternoon, Madison found herself in the principal's office, not in trouble, but being praised. Her mother had just donated new uniforms for the choir, and Mrs. Henderson was gushing about the Turner family's generosity. "We're so lucky to have families like yours supporting our school," Mrs. Henderson said. "Speaking of which, your father mentioned he knows our guest judge personally." Madison's smile was perfect. "Oh yes, Mr. Williams is a family friend. Daddy thought it would be nice to have someone really important judge our little talent show." What Madison didn't know was that her father had never met Marcus Williams. He'd simply made a call to someone who knew someone who owed someone a favor. The kind of favor that gets returned in unexpected ways. But none of that mattered to Madison. What mattered was that in 2 days, Malik Johnson would be completely humiliated in front of the entire school. And she would be the one holding the camera. The next morning, Malik made a decision that would change everything. He was going to prepare like his life depended on it. Not because he thought he could win. Not because he believed the kids at school would suddenly respect him. But because something inside him, something he'd never felt before, was telling him this moment mattered. He found Mr. Rodriguez, the night janitor, just as the man was finishing his shift. "Mr. Rodriguez?" Malik's voice was small, uncertain. Would it be okay if I practiced in the auditorium sometimes? After school?" "Mr." Rodriguez looked at this quiet kid with the patched jeans and the hopeful eyes. He'd been cleaning these halls for 15 years. He'd seen plenty of kids like Malik get chewed up and spit out by this place. "What are you practicing for, Mijo?" "The talent show. I know it sounds stupid, but nothing about music is stupid." Mr. Rodriguez pulled out his keys. "You can practice every day until 4:30, but you clean up after yourself and you don't tell anyone I let you in there." That afternoon, while Madison was at the country club getting her nails done, Malik stood alone on the auditorium stage. The silence was complete, overwhelming, the kind of silence that makes you understand why people are afraid of empty theaters. He started quietly, just humming, then a few words, then finally full voice. The acoustics in the auditorium were perfect. His voice filled every corner, every seat, every shadow. Rich and deep and completely untrained, but somehow perfect. What Malik didn't know was that he wasn't alone. Marcus Williams had arrived in Brentwood that morning, earlier than expected. He'd driven straight to the school, wanting to get a feel for the place before the talent show. The principal had given him a tour, and he'd asked to spend a few minutes in the auditorium just to check the acoustics. He was sitting in the back row, reviewing his notes when he heard the voice. Marcus froze, actually froze. That tone, that natural rhythm, the way the voice found the heart of the song without any training or technique. He'd heard that voice before. Not exactly the same, but close enough to make his hands shake. It was Carmen's voice, Carmen's tone, but deeper, male, younger. Marcus stood up slowly, his chair creaking in the silence. The singing stopped. "Hello," called a young voice from the stage. "Is someone there?" Marcus didn't answer, couldn't answer. Because if he was right, If this was what he thought it was, then everything he'd been searching for was standing right there on that stage. His son was standing right there on that stage. Marcus Williams couldn't shake what he'd heard. That voice, that same melody his ex-girlfriend Carmen used to hum when she thought no one was listening. The same tune she'd sing to calm herself during their late-night phone calls 13 years ago. He pulled out his phone and replayed the video. The boy on stage looked nothing like him, but voices don't lie. Marcus had spent years listening to testimony, picking apart lies from truth. This wasn't coincidence. Jenkins, he called to his assistant. I need you to pull some records. Carmen Rodriguez, last known address in Nashville. Check birth certificates too. Any children born around 2012. His hands trembled as he made the call. Carmen's old number was disconnected, but her sister Maria still lived in the same neighborhood. The conversation was brief, tense. She moved away when Malik was born, Maria whispered. Never said why, just packed up one night and left. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Malik, the boy's name was Malik. Maria, I need to ask you something important. Does he look anything like me? The silence stretched too long. You need to see him for yourself, Marcus. But be careful. Carmen had her reasons for leaving. That evening, Marcus drove to Brentwood Middle School. The parking lot was empty except for a few cars. He waited, watching the late buses pull away. Then he saw him. Malik walked alone, backpack slung over one shoulder, humming that same tune. Marcus's breath caught. The boy had Carmen's eyes, but his walk, his posture, that was Marcus at 12 years old. Marcus started to get out of his car, then stopped. What would he say? How do you approach a child who might be your son? A child whose mother disappeared to protect him from? What? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stay away from my son. You gave up that right 13 years ago. See, Marcus stared at his phone. Carmen was watching. She knew he was there. He looked up to see Malik boarding the last bus, unaware that his entire world was about to change. Marcus had found his son, but Carmen clearly wasn't ready to be found. The judge who'd spent years ruling on custody cases had just discovered he had a child he never knew existed, and the mother was still running. Carmen's hands shook as she put down her phone. She'd been watching from her car across the street, heart pounding as she saw Marcus sitting in his black sedan. 13 years of hiding, 13 years of building a life for her and Malik, and now everything was falling apart. She'd changed her name, moved 3 times, worked double shifts at the diner just to keep them afloat. All to protect Malik from the truth she could never tell him. Back in their small apartment, Carmen paced the tiny living room. The walls were covered with Malik's artwork, his honor roll certificates, photos of him at school events where she was always the only parent cheering from the back row. Mom, you okay? Malik asked, emerging from his room with homework in hand. You look worried. Carmen forced a smile. Just tired, baby. Long day at work. But Malik knew his mother better than anyone. He'd learned to read her moods, to sense when she was scared. And she was definitely scared now. Is it about the video? The one from school? Malik sat beside her on the couch. I know you didn't want me to perform, but I had to. They would have made fun of me forever if I just stood there. Carmen's heart broke. Her son thought she was disappointed in him when the truth was she'd never been more proud or more terrified. Malik, if I told you we had to move again, would you trust me? The question hung in the air between them. Malik had never questioned their moves before. He learned not to get too attached to places or people because Mom always had a reason for leaving. Are we in trouble? He asked quietly. Carmen pulled him close, breathing in the scent of his hair. He still smelled like the baby she'd rocked to sleep 13 years ago. The baby she'd sworn to protect, no matter what it cost her. No, baby, we're not in trouble. But sometimes adults make mistakes, and those mistakes can hurt the people they love most. Malik pulled back to look at her. What kind of mistakes? Before Carmen could answer, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from a number she recognized. Marcus Williams, using his office line. She let go to voicemail, but they both heard the message through the speaker. Carmen, please. I just want to talk. If he's my son, I have a right to know. And he has a right to know me. Malik's eyes went wide. Mom, who was that? What did he mean? Carmen realized her 13-year secret was about to destroy them both. Madison Turner's father owned half the commercial real estate in Brentwood. Her mother sat on the school board. When Madison walked into Principal Harris's office the next morning, she wasn't there to get in trouble. She was there to cause it. "That boy, Malik, he's become a problem," Madison said, settling into the chair across from the principal like she owned the place. "My friends are upset. The whole talent show thing was supposed to be fun, but now everyone's talking about him instead of the actual talented kids." Principal Harris shifted uncomfortably. The Turner family's donations had funded the new gymnasium and the computer lab. Their opinion mattered. "Madison, the performance was quite remarkable. The video has brought positive attention to our school dash." "Has it?" Madison interrupted. "Because my mom says the comments online are getting ugly. People are saying mean things about our school, about the other kids. She's worried about the district's reputation." This was a lie, but Madison delivered it with the confidence of someone who'd never been challenged. Principal Harris's face paled. "What exactly are you suggesting? Maybe Malik should transfer. There are schools better suited for kids like him. Places where he'd fit in better." The principal knew exactly what she meant. And the horrible truth was, it would be easier. The Turner family's influence versus one quiet kid and his single mother who worked at the diner downtown. Meanwhile, Marcus had spent the night researching. Birth records, school enrollment, anything he could find about Malik Rodriguez. The boy had been born 3 months after Carmen disappeared. The timeline fit perfectly. He arrived at the school just as Madison was leaving the principal's office, a satisfied smile on her face. "Excuse me." Marcus approached the front desk. "I'm looking for information about one of your students, Malik Rodriguez." The secretary looked up, recognizing him from the news. "Are you here in an official capacity, Your Honor?" "Personal matter," Marcus said carefully. "I believe I may be related to the boy." Before the secretary could respond, Principal Harris appeared. "Judge Williams? This is unexpected. How can we help you?" Marcus chose his words carefully. "I saw the video of your talent show. Remarkable young man. I'd like to speak with him, if possible." Principal Harris's expression darkened. "I'm afraid that won't be possible. We're dealing with some disciplinary issues regarding that performance. The boy may need to find a different educational environment." Marcus felt his blood pressure rise. Disciplinary issues? For singing, there have been complaints. From other families, important families. Marcus understood immediately. The same system that had failed him as a kid was now failing his son. The only difference was, this time Marcus had the power to fight back. "Principal Harris, I think we need to have a more detailed conversation about this situation." Marcus Williams had presided over hundreds of cases, but he'd never felt the kind of rage that consumed him as he sat in Principal Harris's office. The man was actually considering transferring Malik because a wealthy family didn't like the attention he was getting. "Let me make sure I understand," Marcus said, his voice deadly calm. "You're punishing a child for being talented because it threatens someone else's ego?" Principal Harris squirmed. "It's not that simple, Your Honor. The Turners have been very generous to our school. We have to consider all our students' needs." "All your students? Or just the ones whose parents write checks?" Before Harris could answer, there was a knock on the door. Carmen Rodriguez stood in the doorway, her face pale but determined. "I heard you were asking about my son," she said, stepping into the office. "I think it's time we talked." Marcus stood slowly. 13 years had changed her. She was thinner now, more tired around the eyes, but she was still the woman he'd loved. The woman who'd disappeared without explanation. Carmen. The name came out as barely a whisper. Principal Harris looked between them, confused. "I'm sorry, do you two know each other?" "We did," Carmen said, never taking her eyes off Marcus. "A long time ago." Marcus felt the room spinning. All those years of wondering, of thinking she'd just gotten tired of him, of believing he wasn't worth a goodbye. "Why?" he asked. "Why didn't you tell me?" Carmen's composure cracked. "Because I knew what would happen. I knew you'd want to be involved, and I knew your family would never accept us. A judge dating a waitress is one thing. A judge with a mixed-race son whose mother cleaned houses to put herself through night school? That's career suicide." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "You didn't trust me to choose. I trusted you to choose your career," Carmen shot back. Just like you chose it over me every time your phone rang, every time you had to work late, every time you had to go to some function where I didn't fit. Principal Harris cleared his throat. Perhaps you should continue this conversation elsewhere, Dash. No, Marcus said firmly. We'll continue it right here, because this is about my son, and I won't have him punished for existing. He turned to Harris. That boy will not be transferred. If the Turner family has a problem with a child expressing his talents, they can move their daughter to a private school. Are we clear? Harris nodded weakly. Carmen stared at Marcus in shock. Your son, DNA will confirm it, but I don't need science to tell me what I already know. He has your eyes and my voice. He's been humming the same song you used to sing. Marcus's voice broke. He's my son, Carmen, and I've missed 12 years of his life. Outside the office, neither of them noticed Malik standing in the hallway, having arrived early to avoid the morning bus bullies. He'd heard everything. Malik pressed his back against the hallway wall, his heart hammering so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. The man in the office. The judge from the video was his father. His father. All those years of wondering why he didn't look like his mom, why other kids asked about his dad, why his mom always changed the subject when he brought it up. All those years of feeling like half of him was missing. And now he knew why. He heard footsteps and quickly ducked into the nearby bathroom. Through the crack in the door, he watched his mother walk out of the office, tears streaming down her face. Behind her came the judge, his father, calling her name. Carmen, please. We need to talk about this. About him. His mother spun around. Talk about what, Marcus? About how you're going to waltz into his life now that it's convenient. About how you're going to explain to your colleagues that you have a son you never knew about. That's not fair and you know it. Fair. Carmen's voice cracked. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been telling you 13 years ago and watching you choose between us and your career. Fair would have been watching Malik grow up knowing his father was ashamed of him. I would never have been ashamed, Dash. Wouldn't you? Look at this school, Marcus. Look at what happens when a kid like Malik stands out. They try to tear him down, transfer him, make him disappear. That's the world you live in. That's the world I was protecting him from. Malik wanted to run out there, to tell them both to stop fighting, to tell his mother that he could handle the truth. But he was frozen, listening to his entire world reshape itself. He deserves to know, Marcus said quietly. Whatever you think of me, he deserves to know who his father is. And what happens when the story gets out? When people find out the respected Judge Williams has a secret son, when they start asking questions about why I left, why I never came forward. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then I'll deal with it. But I won't lose him again, Carmen. I won't lose another 12 years. Malik heard footsteps moving away, then silence. He crept out of the bathroom and saw his mother standing alone in the hallway, her face buried in her hands. For the first time in his life, Malik realized his mother needed protecting too. He stepped out into the hall. Mom! Carmen looked up, and Malik saw the exact moment she realized he'd heard everything. Baby, I can explain, Dash. I know, Malik said quietly. I heard. The silence between Malik and his mother stretched like a chasm. Carmen's worst nightmare had come true. Not just that Marcus had found them, but that Malik had discovered the truth in the cruelest way possible. How long have you known? Carmen asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Just now, Malik said, stepping closer. But I've always wondered. Kids at school, they talk about their dads. I used to make up stories about mine. Carmen's heart shattered. Baby, I was trying to protect you, Dash. From what? From having a father who's a judge? From having someone who might actually want me around? The hurt in his voice cut deeper than any argument. Carmen had spent 13 years convincing herself she'd made the right choice. But seeing the pain in her son's eyes made her question everything. It's not that simple, Malik. There are things you don't understand about his world. About how people like us are treated when we don't fit their picture. People like us? Malik's voice rose. You mean poor people? Black people? What exactly are you protecting me from, Mom? Before Carmen could answer, Marcus appeared at the end of the hallway. He'd been looking for them, and now he stood frozen, watching his son, confront the woman who'd kept them apart. I can answer that, Marcus said, walking toward them. She was protecting you from people who would judge you before they knew you. People who would see your skin color, your address, your mother's job, and decide you weren't worth their time. Malik turned to face him. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. They had the same jawline, the same way of tilting their head when they were thinking. "Are you one of those people?" Malik asked directly. Marcus felt the weight of the question. Everything depended on his answer, not just his relationship with his son, but the kind of man he'd choose to be going forward. "I was," he admitted. "I cared too much about what other people thought. I let my career become more important than the people I loved. Your mother left because she knew I wasn't brave enough to choose her over my reputation." Carmen stared at him in shock. She'd never heard Marcus admit weakness, never seen him vulnerable. "But I'm not that man anymore," Marcus continued. "Finding out about you, it changes everything. I don't care who knows about us. I don't care what it costs me. I just want the chance to be your father." Malik looked between them. These two adults who'd shaped his life without him knowing it. The mother who'd sacrificed everything to protect him, and the father who'd never known he existed. "What happens now?" Malik asked. Neither Carmen nor Marcus had an answer, but they all knew there was no going back. Madison Turner had never been told no in her life. Where her parents heard that Judge Williams was somehow connected to that boy from the talent show, they were furious. Not because of racism, they were too smart to say that out loud, but because their daughter's social standing was being threatened. "This is ridiculous," Madison's mother, Patricia, said during an emergency meeting with Principal Harris. "We donate thousands to the school. Our daughter has been here since kindergarten. Now you're telling us we can't handle one disruptive student." "Mrs. Turner, the situation is complicated, dash." "No, it's not," Madison interrupted. "He doesn't belong here. Everyone knows it. Just because some judge wants to play daddy doesn't change that." Her father, Richard Turner, leaned forward. "Harris, let me be clear. If this boy stays, we're pulling Madison out and taking our donations with us. The school board will hear about this." What they didn't know was that Marcus Williams had anticipated this conversation. He'd spent the morning making calls of his own to the district superintendent, to the school board president, to local news stations that were already interested in the viral video. Actually, Principal Harris said, looking more confident than he had all week, "I've been informed that any attempt to force out a student based on their family situation could result in a federal investigation. The district has decided to fully support Malik Rodriguez's continued enrollment." Madison's face turned red. "This isn't over. People will find out the truth about him, about his mother. They'll know he doesn't belong with us." "You're right," said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Marcus Williams entering the office with Malik beside him. "People will find out the truth. They'll find out that my son is brilliant, talented, and braver than most adults I know." Madison stared at Malik, then at Marcus. "Your son. My son," Marcus repeated firmly. "And if you or your family have a problem with that, you're welcome to find another school." For the first time in her life, Madison Turner had no comeback. She looked to her parents for support, but they were too busy calculating the political implications of going against a sitting judge. Malik stepped forward, his voice steady and clear. "I'm not going anywhere, Madison. This is my school too." The girl who'd spent weeks tormenting him suddenly looked very small. Her reign of terror was over. The story broke 3 days later. Not the way Madison Turner had hoped, but as a celebration of talent overcoming adversity. The video of Malik's performance had reached 2 million views, and news stations were calling it the most inspiring talent show moment of the year. Marcus found himself fielding calls from reporters, but instead of hiding, he embraced the attention. He scheduled a press conference for Friday afternoon, right in the Brentwood Middle School auditorium where it all began. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, standing at the same podium where Malik had been humiliated just weeks before. "I want to tell you about my son." The crowd was packed. Parents, students, reporters, and curious community members. Carmen sat in the front row, Malik beside her, both nervous but proud. 3 weeks ago, I watched a video of a young man performing at this school's talent show. I was moved by his talent, but more importantly, I was moved by his courage. What I didn't know then was that this remarkable boy was my son. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Marcus had prepared for this moment. But seeing all those faces, some supportive, some skeptical, made his heart race. Malik Rodriguez is my son. His mother, Carmen, made the difficult decision 13 years ago to raise him alone. She worked multiple jobs, sacrificed her own dreams, and gave him the love and support that made him the exceptional young man he is today. He looked at Carmen, who was wiping away tears. I wasn't there for his first word, his first step, his first day of school. I missed 12 years of his life, but I won't miss another day. The auditorium was dead silent. Marcus continued, "Some of you might wonder how this affects my career or my reputation. The truth is, I don't care. Being Malik's father is the most important job I'll ever have." He gestured to Malik, who stood up slowly. "Son, would you like to say something?" Malik walked to the podium, the same spot where he'd been mocked just weeks ago. Now, facing a crowd of hundreds, he felt different, stronger. "I spent my whole life wondering who my father was," Malik said, his voice carrying clearly through the auditorium. "I used to think maybe he didn't want me, but now I know the truth. Sometimes families find each other in unexpected ways." He looked at Carmen, then at Marcus. "I have a mom who gave up everything for me, and a dad who's willing to risk everything for me. I'm pretty lucky." The applause started slowly, then built to a roar. In the back of the auditorium, Madison Turner watched her world crumble. The boy she tried to destroy was now the most talked about student in the district. But for Malik, Carmen, and Marcus, the real work was just beginning. 2 months later, life had settled into a rhythm none of them had expected. Marcus had moved to a house just 10 minutes from Carmen's apartment, close enough to be involved, but far enough to respect the boundaries they were still figuring out. Malik spent Wednesday evenings and every other weekend with his father. They'd go to baseball games, work on homework together, and Marcus was teaching him to play chess. The boy was a natural, thinking 3 moves ahead, just like his father. "Check," Malik said, moving his bishop across the board. Marcus studied the position, impressed. "You're getting too good at this. Mom says I get it from you." The thinking ahead part. Marcus smiled. "Your mom's pretty smart herself. She thought 13 years ahead when she decided to protect you." It was still awkward sometimes, these conversations about the past, but they were learning to navigate them together. Carmen was adjusting too. For the first time in years, she wasn't carrying the weight of parenthood alone. When Malik got sick, Marcus brought soup and stayed up with him. When parent-teacher conferences came around, they went together. The hardest part was the media attention. The story had gone national, and reporters still called regularly. Marcus handled most of it, but Carmen hated the spotlight. She'd increased her hours at the diner just to avoid the questions. "You don't have to keep working so hard," Marcus told her one evening as they watched Malik practice piano in his living room. "I can help with expenses." "I know," Carmen said, "but I need to work. I need to know I can still take care of it myself." Marcus understood. 13 years of independence wasn't something you gave up overnight. At school, things had changed dramatically. Madison Turner had transferred to a private academy across town. Her parents claimed it was for better opportunities, but everyone knew the real reason. The girl who'd ruled through fear had lost her power the moment Malik found his voice. Other students who'd been silent spectators to the bullying started speaking up. Teachers paid more attention to the quiet kids, the ones who ate lunch alone. The talent show had become an annual celebration of diversity instead of a popularity contest. Principal Harris had implemented new policies about family involvement and anti-bullying measures. The changes came too late for some, but they might protect other kids like Malik. "Dad," Malik said, looking up from the piano, "will you come to my school concert next week?" Marcus felt his chest tighten with emotion. After 12 years of missed moments, he'd never take an invitation like that for granted. "I wouldn't miss it," he said. "We'll both be there." Carmen reached over and squeezed his hand. They weren't a traditional family, but they were becoming something beautiful. The school concert was packed. Unlike the talent show months earlier, this time the audience was genuinely excited to hear what the students had prepared. Malik had been chosen as the opening act, an honor that would have been unthinkable before. Carmen and Marcus sat in the front row, side by side, but not quite together. They were still figuring out what their relationship meant now that they shared more than just a son. Ladies and gentlemen, Principal Harris announced, "Please welcome Malik Rodriguez with an original song." Malik walked to the microphone, looking confident in a way that made Carmen's heart swell. He'd grown taller in the past few months, his voice deeper, his shoulders straighter. Finding his father had changed him, but not in the way she'd feared. He was still her gentle, thoughtful boy, just braver now. "This song is about family," Malik said into the microphone. "About the people who love you even when it's hard. About second chances and new beginnings." He began to sing, his voice pure and strong. But this wasn't the song from the talent show. This was something new, something that belonged entirely to him. The lyrics told their story: a mother's sacrifice, a father's regret, a son's forgiveness. He sang about secrets that hurt and truths that heal. About finding yourself in the spaces between what was and what could be. In the audience, people were crying. Teachers who'd watched Malik eat lunch alone for years. Parents who'd ignored their own children's bullying. Students who'd been too afraid to speak up when it mattered. But in the front row, Carmen and Marcus only had eyes for their son. This boy who'd brought them back together, who'd forced them to confront their past and build something better. As the song ended, the applause was deafening. Malik smiled and waved, then looked directly at his parents. "Thank you," he said into the microphone. "Thank you for teaching me that it's okay to use your voice, even when people don't want to hear it." Later, as they walked to the parking lot together, Marcus turned to Carmen. "You did an amazing job with him. He's incredible." "We did an amazing job," Carmen corrected. "Even when you weren't here, you were part of him. His sense of justice, his stubbornness, his need to do the right thing. That's all you." Marcus stopped walking. "Carmen, I know we can't go back. I know I hurt you, but maybe we could try to move forward together." Carmen looked at him, this man who'd once broken her heart and now shared her greatest joy. "I don't know what that looks like, Marcus, but I'm willing to find out." Malik ran back to them, his concert program clutched in his hand. "Did you hear all that clapping? I think they actually liked it." "They loved it," Carmen said, pulling him into a hug. "Just like we love you. Both of us," Marcus added, joining the embrace. For the first time in 13 years, they felt like a family. Not perfect, not traditional, but real. And that was enough.